Hi everyone, and welcome back. We're here for another episode, unlucky for some, episode 13 of the Top Drive Show. We're going to start off with your comments, and the most upvoted comment, with 42 votes, comes from FBI. Really nice to see that you're watching our videos. The comment reads thus: gameplay, more station wagons and vans, more rally cars and motorsport vehicles, braking distance test, both vehicles start off at the same speed and cross a blue or checkered line and brake, map design, Tuga map with a hairpin, airport runway, airport taxiway, small neighbourhood speed bumps, rock climbing map for off-road SUVs and pickups, sandy dunes map, deserts basically, docks, pier, sandy beach, small details, headlights, brake lights, reflection at lights of camera, vehicle engine sounds, the more realistic ones. Bang bang, what's that? It's the misfiring system of the Mitsubishi Evo. Tyre squeal when vehicle brakes on asphalt. Smoke effects when a vehicle floors on a starting position at 0. That's not a question.
Ah.
Nice try, FBI.
Wow.
And thank you for making me read that.
That's interesting, though. I mean, there's some little things there that I haven't heard someone say.
Shall I just say that they're all on the list?
Oh yeah,
all on the list. Some of them towards the bottom.
Yeah,
they're all on the list.
Well,
there's definitely some. Actually, there's one in particular. I think I heard the braking test come out, which is something that I've. Obviously, we had the concept of sort of the 0 to 100 to 0 test, but actually, there's almost a more interesting one, which is kind of accelerating to a point and then or accelerating as fast as you can go, and then stopping for a point.
And
like stopping at the same point.
You have to stop
just
at
stopping,
a certain point.
so they're both stopping at that same point. So it's almost just like, how quickly can you
get to that
get
point
there
and be stationary?
Yes. Which I think is done in things like Top Gear and stuff. They sometimes did challenges where they put one of their valuable objects at a position on the track.
Yeah.
And the presenters had to try and get as fast as they could, and then stop before smashing into their priceless grand piano and things like that.
I see.
But we wouldn't do it in that style. But there's something there. So now I think we will deconstruct his large list and.
So thank you, FBI. You did get a lot of upvotes. So I'm kind of. What do you think?
That.
What do you think? Do we give them a?
No, you've got to stick to the rules.
Yeah.
One question, one comment.
Yeah, that wasn't a question either. Okay. But thank you very much for your comment. Coming up with another question now is Braden Stock, who asks, skill-based matchmaking in the future? The gap between sort of big players like Bugatti and free-to-play, like the majority, it's difficult to reach a top prize position. Maybe rank based on total RQ in your garage, perhaps. Now, that sounds like something we already do.
Right. It's the old matchmaking question, isn't it? Yes. Which is... I mean, we've gone over this debate quite a lot of times ever since we came out, I think. We changed it one time in a fairly big way, and since then we've stuck with it. I mean, the big problem is that Top Drives has this weird situation where you can have a massively diverse garage and you could be completely amazing in one event and have absolutely nothing useful for another event. So how do you do matchmaking in that situation? And the solution we've gone with is primarily about trophies, and it's just like the more you've won, the more you will encounter other people who have won a lot. And that doesn't look at your garage in any way. It's just like, did you win a lot? Well, so did they, so try and beat them. And that ultimately is kind of the fairest thing you can do. Well, my favourite feature about it is it does mean you can have a specialism and it's meaningful. You can go, I'm just going to collect all the best, I don't know, British cars. That's what I do. I'm sticking to those. So when those events come out, I'm good and I've invested in them and I will tend to do better. Whereas if there was some more vehicle or garage based matchmaking, it wouldn't matter what you got because you'd be matched with somebody else who had something similar. And then what in terms of skill, right? They mentioned you're trying to separate out somehow the different elements to how good a player is. But I think my argument is we get at that with our rarity and RQ limited events. There's a lot of events that run at, just super air and blow and RQ limits that are down there, and really anybody should be able to compete with those. That is where we cater to that bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, in a way that they exist just, for that entire reason, really, to kind of level the playing field a little bit and give sort of, mix up kind of, as is pointed out, sometimes there can be a feeling that kind of there's a group of players who are just always at the top. But I think when you bring in RQ limits, there's definitely sort of, there's more scope then to kind of mix up the results.
Yeah.
But it's a classic problem in games, really, isn't it? how do you match
Yeah,
people?
there's a lot of players, and they've got to race each other. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose.
That's a thing.
So yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah. All right, well, thank you,
That's what we
Braden. You get a carbon fibre pack. Our next question comes from a familiar name. It's Mateus Zira, who asks, will we have a car count feature? I have over 300 cars, and I'd like to know how many exactly, without having to count to 300 every time. I'd like it to work with requirements also, like you press dodge only. So I think we've had a question a bit like this before, which is that people want a garage search feature. So this is essentially another version of that, but also that you can just find out how many of a certain thing you have.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, definitely appreciate that it is a desirable feature. It was one of these, it's probably, I don't know, this maybe makes the situation worse. It was actually one of those things that in an early version of the game we did have.
It was.
And it was very prominent on the home screen for a while. And then
it was like how many cars you had out of all
how
of the
many
cars
exist
that there
in the
are.
game. Yeah. So I mean quite a simple stat. But there was just something quite nice about it, but we just started to run out of real estate on that home screen, and there's no other obvious place to put it. But it ties in with this collection idea that gets talked about a lot, and we have said that we acknowledge the fact that we're not making the most out of the collection side of it. Having a collection of 300 cars is that's a pretty cool thing. That's something that you should be able to view in a number of different ways. I have some ridiculously over the top ways that we could visualize your car collection, but it's just going to fall into that category, really. I think it makes sense to look at that side of things as part of a bigger focus on collection.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just for myself personally, once a month I go through and count all my cars, how many of each rarity, how many are maxed, how many are upgraded, how many have I just got for food, and then I note it down, and that's what I'm doing. I'm substituting for that feature. So there's definitely a need for it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Mateus. You've picked yourself up a carbon fibre pack. The next question I've picked to get asked because I liked it. This from Rio Fox 630, who asks, please fix the mid-range acceleration on some of the AD cars, like the Viper RT10 and the new Corvettes, etc. Mid-range acceleration.
Yes, our favourite.
Yes.
I would rather just not talk about it, if that's all right.
Because it's mid-range acceleration?
No, it's just a notoriously difficult area. So I think we have mentioned before that there are certain performance. There's obviously stats that we are absolutely fine and that we put onto the cards and are player facing. There are some other performance figures that manufacturers basically don't make public. So obviously magazines and independent bodies go off and record these figures, but it's not something that the manufacturers produce. And so anything, when we talk about mid-range acceleration, we're basically talking about those sort of highly illegal speeds, that cars can reach, and their performance kind of in and around that area. And it's just by the very nature. We obviously kind of, I know we talk a lot about that. We want Top Drives to be as accurate as possible. But even the kind of car magazine world is full of really quite dramatically different performance figures in terms of sort of who's been driving, the road surface, the weather surface, kind of whether it's cold or whether it's warm, and even the car itself and the fuel it's running on. The number of variables can give quite different readings, particularly for those performance figures that aren't recorded that much. So a lot of magazines will say will record a 0 to 60 figure because it's quite straightforward, but that more kind of complex sort of mid-range area is fewer magazines do it, and the discrepancies just seem bigger. So in short, it's an unpredictable area, and I think when there are cars that are highlighted as that there's something definitely not quite right, that's when we go off and do even more investigative car performance journalism and try and source just a more accurate. You're never going to get the kind of one definitive figure, but we try and find several sources and then look at what, consider what we think is the figure that makes the most sense. So if you can, keep flagging these things. All I would say is keep flagging these issue cars up, and we will investigate them with every major update we do. And I know the next update to go out has a couple of big fixes or improvements. I think with the Bugatti Veyrons, their mid-range acceleration is much more in line with where it should be, and I know the Viper ACR is also being improved or fixed. So we do, we are catching them, but it's not, unfortunately, there's no one answer that's going to solve all of them.
Yeah. Well, and just in terms of the process and what we do there, because it's a lot of effort to try and figure it out, and there's a lot of cars, it's not enough to go, that's just wrong. We have a process where there's a thread for it on the web forum, because things are a little bit more organised there. It's a better place for it to go. And that's where you can come and say, look, this car, you can put it on the 1 mile saying, look, its 1 mile time is this, or it takes this long to get to 80 miles an hour, 100 or 120 or whatever, and then link to something somewhere that says this is what it actually does, not just Wikipedia where anybody can just edit it and put any number in, but something that somebody measured. So make the case, then that goes on the list, and then we prioritise that list and we go through them and we'll check them, and then they go into a major update. And the next one will have some corrections.
The absolute best sources are where one of the major sort of magazines or car websites has gone out and run a sort of full performance breakdown of a car, actually particularly when they've done a few cars as well, because it just means that you've got those reference points for kind of what were conditions like that day. So those are definitely the best sources, and so there's definitely some problem cars, I admit that. It's probably just worth pointing out as well that you do get cars that are actually just a bit weak in their mid-range. It's not happen. I think often you get this scenario where kind of a car can be faster, over a quarter mile or up to 60 miles an hour, and then actually kind of be a bit weaker after that. And a car that's a bit slower off the line can actually be, whether it's gearing or the way the engine's been set up or aerodynamics, it can actually be sort of stronger in the mid-range. So that difference does exist as well. But no, we definitely endeavour to fix the obvious problems.
Just a quick moment right now. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in episode 12, because we got over 100 likes, and at the time of recording we had 182 comments, which is fantastic. We really love hearing from everybody, so thank you so much for participating. We hope that you will repeat your endeavours this time around. You should know the rules by now, but you leave a comment with your questions. And if you see another question that someone else has asked that you like the look of, give it a like, because we look at the most liked comments first. Going to move on to another question now from XNoNetX Top Drives, who's a familiar name by now, who asks, could we have fuse material packs? They'd be just like regular packs, but at around 60% or to 70% of the usual price, and without a chance of getting any card above the base rarity for a given pack. So essentially they're asking for cannon fodder packs. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, like maybe it's not even a car. Maybe instead of an ultra rare car, it's just an ultra rare like token that you could use to fuse. Yeah, we talked about that idea. I remember that one.
Did we?
Yeah. A while back. Well, way back in the beginning of the game, and then later on we were talking about other things that could come in, and we were like, oh, you could have that. That could be a new thing you could win, and it's not quite as valuable as a car. So if it came out of a pack or whatever, it would be a bit.
Yeah, it could be a slightly more economical way of getting to the fusing stage that you're after.
Yeah, exactly. But it didn't jump to the top of the list as like the most exciting, high value thing we could do.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it kind of. I guess what we don't want to do is kind of make the whole thing too sort of clinical is probably the right word. In that kind of a big part of the fun of Top Drives is opening packs, and it's just like there's almost that moment of is this fodder, or kind of is this actually kind of it could be a low RQ car, but it's like actually that's a useful car.
It's a huge part of the game,
for challenges that are coming.
And it's another reason to have a lot of slots as well, because what I like to do is save up a lot of fodder. I usually like to have about, if I can possibly have 30 super rares and 15 ultra rares, takes a while to get there, and then keep that then I'm ready to max a car if it comes up. But also I'm ready with a load of cars where suddenly if an event comes up and you need that one, I go, oh, it's not food, I'm going to use it for that. And so that creates that strategy around slots. So yeah, that fuse or food, use or lose thing, which a lot of people are always asking about in the forums as well, what do you think about this car, is quite a good part of the game. So it is interesting.
Just don't want to undermine, don't want to introduce something that then undermines.
Yeah, so it adds some value, and that it's a new interesting thing you could win sometimes, but it takes away a little bit because that strategy is actually one of the interesting things about the game.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not at the top of the list of the thing we should do.
But a very good question. Thank you. Okay, then we've got a few more questions that I dug deep into the comments section. I picked these ones up because I thought that they were quite funny. A question from Mark Conop. I think it might be an R, like, or a row, I don't know, but it says Conop on my screen, so sorry about that if that's wrong. Have we thought about bringing some players into the studio for future Top Drive shows? They could ask questions directly, give feedback, or participate in challenges. Actually, yes, we have thought of this. We still don't know how we would actually go about doing it, but I think it would be really fun. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be in or near London or able to get here quite easily.
Ooh, spoilers, we're in London.
Yeah, you can see it's right there.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know, I think it'd be fun. Yeah, I thought of some things.
I think it would be great. If we can figure it really is just a logistic challenge more than anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, there's a few things I think kind of in terms of kind of expanding out our universe a bit, I think would be good. And we've talked before about maybe getting some other people from the car world in.
Yep.
Occasionally, which I think is something that we will hopefully look at this season.
Whoa.
And yeah, just
yeah, well, if we think of something that we're just like, yes, we have to do that, then I'm sure you'll all hear about it. So watch this space.
Yeah.
Another good question, this one from Billy Tulas, that asks, how do you determine car handling? So we've kind of danced around this question. We've sort of answered it before, but how do we actually do it?
Well,
what's the real process?
First, what is handling?
What is handling?
Because there's the speed of the car, and there's its weight, and that's in there. And you can see how if you're heavier, it's harder to go around the corner, and there's some physics going on there. But cars have other aspects to them that can make them better or worse at cornering, right? Like how high the central gravity is, and how the suspension works.
Yes, there's suspension sophistication, tyre widths, tyre types, which is obviously kind of covered anyway in the game.
Yeah. Lateral grip, downforce.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't want to. I don't feel like any of us sitting here can claim to be the ones that actually solve that issue of what it is. In terms of kind of sort of long answer, in terms of how the process worked, was that we obviously met. The road test team at Evo Magazine were involved from really quite early on in Top Drives, and we would be discussing when we were sort of building what we call the resolver, but the kind of physics simulation sort of behind the game. We would discuss with them at kind of different stages about what that had to include in terms of kind of making the cars go around the corners at different speeds and braking distances and things like that. They were involved in all that side of it. But in terms of the actual score itself, that is something that the road test team at Evo Magazine just take, it's their area of the game. It sounds like they have some really fun debates that go on whenever there's a new batch of cars to go in. I think there's probably some cars that are kind of fairly obvious in terms of where they stack up against their natural opponents, and then I think there's other cars that just generate a huge debate amongst the road testers there, and it's just great because we, as much as I would love to have driven all the cars in Top Drives, I haven't.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And even there's going to be cars that they haven't actually driven, but they've driven such an incredible cross section of cars, and enough of the cars that we feature that it just gives them that understanding of basically that, when it comes down to it, it's just what is the ultimate cornering ability of any given car, and that's what we kind of wrap up into that one handling score.
Well, and in terms of the process as well, there was just that one calibration part where we had the Evo test track modelled in game, and we were able to simulate a car going around it and compare to its actual monitored performance.
Yeah.
And then we could use that to calibrate, like, okay, here's what a handling score should look like because this matches the performance.
Yes, that let us kind of move the scale up and down a little bit and find something that was going to give those real world results that we've been striving for.
Yeah. In terms of corrections, it's a difficult one as well because you can't look this up on a website or anything. There is nothing that says, that's an 87, not a 88.
The generalised handling score that everybody knows.
All you can do is try to find comparator data on a standard track of some kind with corners. I've seen people try to make cases based on Nürburgring times.
Yep.
Which is quite a good way to do it. Although I was recently reading about how you can't really rely on Nürburgring times because they're not official in any way, and you can just pick your best quarters and add them up or something.
And all that. And there's a giant straight which makes a difference.
Yeah. But that would be the way to try and do it. If you thought one was wrong, compare it to another one on a track if they both went on the same kind of track at some point.
Or if any of these car, these big performance breakdowns in the car magazines, if any have done sort of almost a kind of G-force tests in real life and actually got a G value. Cornering G. I mean, that's part of it, and that's a big part of cornering ability, but it's not all of it. You could have a car that generated a big G going in kind of a constant radius circle, but then if you throw in kind of different corners or kind of slalom or things like that, then that adds a new dimension to it. So so we trust that the road test team at Evil are some of the most qualified people in the world to give us that score.
Okay, and the last question that we've got today, and earning a carbon fibre pack, comes from Thomas Studer, who asks, what about a puzzle mode? You get a distinct hand of cards, you can't change, and you're put up against another hand, and you have to find the one correct way to arrange them that would win the match.
Right.
That is a nice idea.
I like that.
Definitely.
That sounds right up my alley in terms of trying to optimize a hand of cards.
Yeah. I mean, we could sort of make it up outside of the game. We could say go to Monaco 3 and use these cars and try to get a score that's higher than 387.
Whoa.
And then you, try it out, I guess. I've seen players setting each other these sorts of challenges as well.
Yeah.
It's a good way to structure it.
What we have to figure out is that we don't obviously if it's this sort of 5 card, we need to figure out a way to kind of give it some legs if it were in the obviously kind of with this five opponents, 5, and if you taking 5 cards in kind of it's not going to quite quickly you're going to figure out the best combination. So somehow maybe we either need to give you a slightly bigger collection of cards and fixed opponents, or
more than one challenge, maybe. So you have to fight two hands.
A series of challenges to go. I mean, maybe it's a slight variation on the current challenge mode. Yeah. In that I think actually in the last episode we talked about this idea of loan. Somebody was talking about loan cars, which a number of other games do.
Yeah.
And actually that almost kind of that is kind of the puzzle mode as well. Mm-hmm. So it's
the puzzle mode sort of just a slightly more constrained version of that. I think.
There was actually I was always quite keen. We never prototyped it, but I was always quite keen on a mode where it was sort of almost like it could either been like daily or weekly, but there was like one single set of opponents. You would go in, do your match against them, and actually it was time based. You get a time out the end of it down to like 2 or 3 decimal
all
points.
All 5 added together.
Yes, all 5 added together.
Right.
And it was sort of that would then go into a leaderboard against everyone else. Right. And it was about how like who can basically do these 5 challenges against these opponents in the fastest possible time.
Right.
Which is a kind of slight variation on that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that this year we'll be at least looking at kind of other ways to play, kind of new ways to play, new modes and kind of variations.
So they're interested in those ideas.
Yeah.
Well, and that puzzle, by the way, as well. It's quite. I've been playing the game a long time, but in the debug mode that we have, there's a button that says, "What's the best possible order?" And it just tells you. And even now, I'm going, "Oh, it's definitely like this," and then it'll go, "No, swap those around, put that one there." And I'm like, "Really?" And then you go, "Oh yeah, that is very slightly better." So there's a lot of depth in there, actually.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of ways you can arrange 5 cards.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. Now, the last thing on our agenda for this time round is the next big event that's coming up. So what have we got to look forward to?
So we're staying in the muscle car space, but this time with a slightly different focus. We've got the 2018 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 1LE.
It's a lot of letters.
As we would say over here.
Yeah. Wait, they say like ZL1?
ZL1, yes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
good as yes. So
And
I
they
just
say
thought,
Camaro as well.
yes, I know.
It's Camaro.
Yeah,
Okay.
Camaro. Okay.
Camaro
Chevrolet
ZL1.
Camaro ZL1 1LE is the next prize car. It's a bit of a monster. As
Looks
I probably
great.
say quite a lot. Looks great.
Yeah.
Just so aggressive. I'll just run off my usual facts.
Yes.
So one thing, looks so aggressive, it's actually cannot be sold in Europe.
Oh.
What does that mean?
Because
What does
Because of
that
how it
mean?
looks.
No, it's
okay.
actually in terms of all those things that make it look so fantastic, do
Yeah.
horrible things for pedestrian safety.
Oh, yes, they probably
Right.
And so,
Right.
unfortunately, we cannot have it over here.
I see.
We are
was just
denied
gon-
that.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that ZL1 1LE sounds like a postcode.
Yes, it does. It's a funny name. I should have probably researched into what the 1LE bit is.
Yeah.
But
I'll find
I'm
out.
sure
I'll do it
somebody-
now.
okay.
I'll do it
Alright.
now.
Yeah, just it's got all the kind of attributes of, you know, unbelievably powerful muscle car, 640 brake horsepower, 0-60 in 3.4 seconds. It's amazing. 198 miles an hour. I mean, a muscle car that's getting on for 200 miles an hour is impressive. They're not, you know, they're not the most aerodynamic things in the
Yeah.
world. I think the big thing about this, and kind of where it makes sense as a prize car and something pretty valuable to add to your collection, is on the handling side.
Right.
So this is their track focused model, completely across the board, all sorts of enhancements to make this thing faster around the track than any of its other Camaro compatriots or other muscle cars or other kind of natural competitors for it. I think probably the kind of the sort of one defining figure is its lap round the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 7 minutes 16 seconds, which is very, very quick.
Yeah.
For any car really. I think compared to its most natural competitor would be the Shelby Mustang GT350R, which was 16 seconds slower.
Oh. Wow.
So that is a big margin, and I think you were just saying just now that actually in terms of in the game, in terms of the muscle car tag,
Yeah.
this is absolutely top of the tree in terms of handling.
Yeah.
So I thought, just for reference, put it up against another Camaro Z28, which is the car that a lot of people have from the campaign.
Yeah, indeed.
So I thought to start with here, I mean, we just do quarter mile drag race, a classic one to show it here. Against that car, it just pulls out a healthy lead and wins that pretty convincingly, which it
Alright.
should, with a 0-60 of 3.4 seconds.
Yeah.
Where it probably gets a bit more interesting is if I switch to, say, a twisty circuit. Let me just find it. So I switch to a twisty circuit. You can see it's kind of off the line again. I mean, the Z28 is still a very, very fast car, and I know a lot of people have used it. It's, you know, a lot in the game because it's very, very useful. But you can see here that extra handling. I mean, 90 handling with no upgrades.
Yeah.
It's just no contest. The ZL1 wins that easily. And I think again, if you're in a muscle car event and there's any form of kind of slalom challenges, I know we've got some new slalom challenges hitting the ground soon. And again, it just gives you that thing where it's great in the drag race, it's great in the kind of the all-out speed challenges, but even in slalom, it's another easy victory. So yes, it's a muscle car, but it's one with a bit of a sort of hidden edge in terms of its handling ability.
Yeah, and it's an epic, so it's easier to upgrade.
Yeah, and if you want the answer to what its name is,
Oh, yeah.
the ZL1 is just the name of the model,
Yeah.
though it originally was a production order code for a specific engine,
Okay.
and 1LE is like a track performance package. And the LE, if I believe the theories I found on this forum, it originally stood for law enforcement, because it was the upgrades that they would give to the cop cars.
Okay,
wow.
to make them better handling.
Yeah, to make them better. So
Wow.
that's where that comes from. At least according to
Somebody.
this forum, which is about Camaro. So they might know what they're talking about. Let's hope.
That is a good fact.
There you go.
So yeah, no, a great. I know it's another muscle car, but I think this one's definitely got something a little bit different about it, and yeah, probably a good car to add.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for this time round on the Top Drive show. But make sure to leave your questions, and we will be back in the near future for another episode. Thanks for playing Top Drives.